Desert wind carried no mercy. It whispered through the crags of the ancient rocks, over the bones of men and beasts, and into the silent heart of a man who had not spoken in days. His name was Khalid ibn Rami, once a feared warrior of the Banu Mazin tribe. Now, at 52, his hair was silvered, his hands scarred with the memory of every battle he'd survived, and his soul burdened by a silence heavier than the chainmail he no longer wore. He rode alone. His horse, Bark, was old and tired, just as he was, but it still recognized the path, one that led not toward war, but home. If home could still be called such a thing. Khalid had not returned to his tribe in over 20 years. Not since the massacre at Wadi al-Mara, when he had disobeyed a direct order from the tribal chief, his own brother, to burn the tents of a rival clan that had surrendered. He refused, believing honor greater than victory. But his mercy had led to retaliation, to bloodshed, to the death of his only son, Tariq, who had still followed him into every fire without question. Tariq's body had never been recovered. The sand had swallowed him like it did so many forgotten names. Khalid had left that day, not in shame but in pain, and he had wandered the Arabian deserts, serving as a sword for hire, a ghost in the shifting dunes, whispered of by merchants and feared by bandits. But age had finally found him. Not even legends live forever. His heart ached with a final desire, not for revenge, but for peace. He sought to return, to speak once more to his brother, to kneel if he must. Not to be accepted, but to tell him, before death, that he had never betrayed their blood, only preserved its dignity. He rode into Al-Mazin, the tribal lands, at dusk. No drums of welcome sounded. No children ran beside him. The men at the gate recognized him, and yet did not move. Their eyes held caution. Ghosts don't return, they seemed to say. Yet here he was. He dismounted without a word. The pain in his knees flared like a desert flame. Every step was a memory of wounds that had never truly healed. But he walked forward, past the warriors, through the village, toward the majlis, the tribal gathering tent, where his brother, Samir, still ruled. The tent was smaller than he remembered, or perhaps he had grown beyond it. Within, the elders sat in silence. Samir sat at the head, his beard now snow-white, eyes sharp as ever. Khalid stood before him. "I am not your brother," Samir said coldly. "You buried that name in Wadi al-Mara." "I buried my son there too," Khalid answered. The words hung like a scimitar above them. "Why return?"
Samir asked.
"Not to ask for place, only to speak what I never did." The silence was allowed. The tribe respected even fallen warriors when they spoke truth. "I did not burn the tents because I saw children inside," Khalid said, "and I could not let my sword fall upon innocents. If that makes me weak, then let it be so. But I carried my shame, not to escape punishment, but because I had lost what was more than tribe. I lost my son, not to their blades, to mine.
He followed me,
Believed in me, and I took him into fire." Samir's jaw clenched, but his eyes flickered with something else. Pain, perhaps. Memory. "We buried him 2 days after," Samir finally said. "He was found in the lower ravine. We gave him honor." Khalid's legs almost gave. He had thought for decades that Tariq had been left for vultures. The knowledge that his son had received a burial, had been mourned. It broke him. He knelt, not out of weakness, but out of exhaustion. The elders remained still, watching not a traitor, but a father. Samir stood, walked to him, looked down not with hate, but grief. "You were right," he said. "Perhaps not then, but now I see." No more was said. None needed to be. That night, Khalid sat outside the tents under the stars. The tribe did not welcome him fully, but neither did they drive him away. He was allowed to sit by the fire alone. He looked up. The stars had not changed. But he had. He spoke aloud, for the first time to no one but the sand. Tariq, I found you. Forgive me. His eyes closed. The fire cracked softly. The wind whispered his name one last time. By morning he was still. The tribe found him seated, upright, eyes closed, hand resting on the hilt of the sword he had not drawn in years. He had come home, and now he was at peace. They buried him beside his son. And for the first time in many years, the sands of Almazen were silent, not with anger, but with honor. But even in death, the legacy of Khalid ibn Rami did not fade as swiftly as the desert winds might wish. It began with whispers. The young warriors of the tribe, many of whom had only heard fragments of his story, now sat in the evenings near the burial mound, listening to the elders speak in tones neither harsh nor soft, but reverent. They told of a man who walked away from vengeance, a man who chose mercy over conquest, a man who lost everything and yet returned, not to reclaim, but to confess. And slowly, Khalid's name, once spoken in bitterness, began to carry a new weight, not one of shame, but sorrow. And sorrow, in time, becomes respect. His sword, still resting beside his grave, was not buried with him. Samir ordered it placed in the majlis, above the gathering fire, not as a symbol of might, but as a reminder that strength lies not only in the hand that holds the blade, but in the heart that knows when not to draw it. But Khalid's story did not end with his memory alone. A young man, no more than 17 summers, named Salem, approached Samir a month after Khalid's death. He bore a strange resemblance, sharp jaw, deep-set eyes, the same quiet fire. He had journeyed far from the southern coastlands. My mother was named Layla, the boy said. Samir's breath caught. Layla had been Khalid's wife, left behind in the chaos, believed long dead. I found a letter among her things after she passed, Salem continued. It said my father rode alone into the desert, seeking peace. She never spoke his name, but she cried his name in her sleep. She called for Khalid. Samir stood in silence. The boy did not ask for place. He simply said, I want to learn who he was. And so he was given food, and shelter, and stories. And every evening, Salem sat by Khalid's grave, saying nothing, but he carved a single line into a stone placed before it. He chose to live in silence so we could speak in peace. Years passed. Salem grew, learned the ways of the sword, but never wielded it in anger. He trained with warriors, but spent more time among poets. He did not want war. He wanted to understand what broke his father and what healed him in the final hour. Eventually, he became the voice of the tribe in gatherings with others, a negotiator, a man of words, not blood. And when Samir, old and weary, lay on his deathbed, he called Salem to his side. You carry his eyes, he said, smiling faintly, but you carry more than that. You carry his peace. Don't lose it. I won't, Salem whispered. Samir's eyes closed for the last time. After the burial, Salem walked to the grave of Khalid, now weathered but always clean of sand. He placed a second stone beside the first. On it he carved,